Right, welcome back. We are continuing our conversation, reconciliation, renewal and healing. This is something that we need to constantly address. I think it's been clear, particularly with some of the incidents that we've seen that have got loads of media coverage on social media as well as in the mainstream media in recent weeks, that perhaps this project, South Africa project, seemed to be working, seemed to be going the right direction, but perhaps we just weren't allowing the voices to ventilate. And periodically now we're seeing the sentiment coming through. And so there really needs to be this process where we dig deep and get into the heart of issues. And restorative justice is one of the issues that have been brought to the table in this particular project. And we've heard from 3 groups so far. There's a couple of others that I'm going to ask to talk to us in a short while. But before that, one issue that is a concern and young people are particularly vulnerable to is an issue that P. Richardson on table number 1 is going to raise. So if Mr. Richardson could stand up and we'll get a microphone to you. And you ask an important question.
Good morning, South Africa. Yes, Peter, there's a few things. Okay, this one concerns the city of Klerksdorp. Thing that is tarnishing the name of the city, and the one is obviously the influx and the increase of the drug dealers in the city centre, together with the increasing of prostitution on the streets right next to one of our high schools. Is there any plan to evict or to eliminate these practices? Okay,
all right, thank you very much indeed. Commissioner, and it is one of the things that we see, you know, it's not just here, across the country. We're seeing some communities under siege actually by these new phenomena that are finding themselves next to children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Peter. What I can say is that we agree that we are having a serious problem around drugs. We talk about Klerksdorp, we talk about Mahike. There are so many places which are affected by the drugs. But as the police, we are embarking on operations. Remember, when we deal with drugs, it's not easy task to do. We need information. Most of our time, our MEC Mkhabane conducts operations with us. He can see how do they hide those drugs. It's difficult to track those drugs unless we get information. But the arrests are being made. But as Mukoni Primo have taken a stance that it doesn't help that we continue hitting on the runners. Because you arrest a runner today, tomorrow somebody else is being recruited. And I want to say that we made so many arrests. February, Peter, we confiscated a truck with 1,400,000 Mendrax tablets at Kofontein Border Gate. Those Mendrax were worth 70 million. And I want to say that the case have been finalized October already. They were found guilty and they are in prison as we talk. October month, the 13th, the Prima even went us to that plot in Boons. We found a drug laboratory. I never thought that we can find a laboratory in Bukoni Prima, but we found a huge drug laboratory in Boons. And last week, we found a plot in Koster where Dacha was planted. You go to that farm, it's just plantation of the Dacha. Wow. To say at Northwest, I'm happy as a provincial commissioner because now we are hitting it where it matters most, not with the runners. But we know about the concern and the operations are continuing. And as part of the festive season, they are focusing on those ones. There's a task team which has been established for Klerksdorp cluster, and they're working on those drugs. I know we did have a meeting one day to talk around those ones, but we are really addressing on it, Peter, and I'm happy to say that there are successes around those ones.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. I hope that answers your question. Okay. There's so many people that I want to include in this conversation, and I want to go to this table here, where I want to get a view, from traditional leadership and also from the church, which would also have to contribute in some way in terms of finding this healing center. And I want to start with you, Meg Grace. If you could just share with us your thoughts when you see this community of ours in pain, needing healing, needing reconciliation. What have we lost of our traditional ways, do you think, that we need to correct for us to get this right?
Dumelang bonkgono. Firstly, I want to qualify this term of speaking because I don't think people really understand what we mean. In Setswana, when we say we speak, we mean involving the parents of the people. We mean involving the kgotlana where these people live. We mean involving the extended families. And this whole group eventually reading kgotla ya kgosi, where the final decision is taken. It's not just taken to two people. That is why we have healing. Because when you have involved everybody who ought to have been involved, even the police, when you have involved them in a customary fashion, where everybody can say exactly how he feels, where everybody can be corrected if he is wrong, and corrected in a manner that will make him see his mistake so that he can then become a new person. That is how we correct people. That is why there is healing. So that when you stop the conversation, when you stop this talking, everybody has got now renewed ideas of understanding what life in an African structure have. And therefore we move on because we have been renewed. We have been given new ideas. We have been given new perspectives of the future.
I think you can hear the response here about the profundity of that statement. And I would imagine that part of involving everybody and changing one's heart, I think, is removing humiliation, because sometimes when a guilty party is attacked, there's a humiliation process. And in this way, one avoids that. And that's why it's perhaps much easier to get to a healing point in that way. Reverend Tlabanyane, I think you're there as well. Can the church play a role? Traditional leadership, certainly, I think this is something we've known and experienced throughout our lives. What about the role of the church in RHR?
Thank you very much, Peter. Allow me to start off by saying you cannot assist a situation of crisis unless you understand how that crisis built up. And that is the whole understanding as church we're trying to develop. To say every one person would like to be proud of their image in society. All the people belonging to gangsterism or not, they are proudly human. And they want to feel proud as human beings. But there are what we call causal factors that drive people to certain unacceptable social behaviors. Unless we reconcile ourselves to ourselves. You see, there is a big difference with the traditional criminal justice system and restorative justice. The traditional criminal justice system, in the end, drive people apart by over-punishing one and ignoring the victim. The criminal justice system, traditional one, it doesn't do much. Now, restorative justice says the occurrence of this crime has brought a societal imbalance. The equilibrium has been affected. We've got to go back to the equation to make sure that both of you have been affected. How do we deal with both of you? Because the offender and the offended are both affected in the occurrence of crime. Dealing with the offender, ignoring the offended, does not heal. Now, criminal justice system, as my chairperson has said, it says, we can actually say before it was criminal justice system, that was the African traditional way of dealing with issues in societies. From the church perspective, when you read the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 18, it is clear we have been given as believers and followers of Christ a ministry of reconciliation. There's nothing that we can preach, there's nothing that we can do. When we find two warring parties, be it families, be it an institution, be it a political party, be it at whatever level, the message we convey, it's a reconciliation. Bringing two parties together. We're not saying there's no wrong, there's no right, but we are saying we are both human beings and we live in the interest of progress, in the interest as a nation of driving forward national transformation agenda. It is when we are reconciled together. And that's what we are saying. We're also saying, as human beings, we need healing. You see, let me take a simple example of a boxer who has been knocked down and does not accept that I've been knocked down and quickly stand up and start fighting again. Quite sure that he's going to be knocked out now. So we are saying, whilst knocked down, accept that you need healing to regain consciousness and to keep fighting longer. And that's all that we as a church has been taught to do. And we are saying there is need for physical healing and spiritual healing for you to be restored. When crime occurs, there's something that is lost. There is need for restoring something. There is also need for renewal, because I don't want myself in my old state. I wish I could get somebody to come and renew my mind, renew my ways, renew my way of looking at things. That is the church's contribution in this whole scheme of works.
Thank you very, very much indeed. And on that spiritual note from our Reverend, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I do want to speak to two more young people who represent two other groups of young people in Kanana who've turned the new leaf, as it were. I just want to get their perspective, and we'll get more questions from them. And I'm also monitoring Twitter, I promise. We'll come to you after this.